today on Sirius XM Pac-12 Radio 373. Here's Jeff Schwartz and Mike Yan.
Pac-12 today, Jeff Schwartz, Mike Yan. Happy to welcome on a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, RJ Young, works for Fox Sports, number one ranked podcast. Mike, before we bring RJ on just a second, he really upset me in the end of April at the draft, and he still hasn't apologized for this take yet. So just take this with a grain of salt, everyone, when you hear him talk about college football. He said that Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield are on the same level as Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, and he has not apologized for that take. Maybe, RJ, you'd like to apologize for that take now.
No more than I want to apologize for being 5'5", 130 pounds and bulletproof. Like, no. Why? There's no way. No. Just wait on it. Like, has Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield, did they get Cleveland to their first playoff in 30 years? Something that Emperor Palpatine was the last person to be able to do? You know, I mean, look, if you're going to walk into Pat Mahomes and you get to sit him for a year and you don't have to throw him to the Wolves and you have all-star studs like your brother on offensive line, yeah, you should probably win a Super Bowl or two.
Well, he has won a Super Bowl. And your love for Oklahoma does not at all cloud your decision in making that bold statement of yours. And we talked earlier in the show about another player leaving the Pac-12 footprint. Malachi Nelson commits to Oklahoma. We've talked about this, me and you, at length. Why are these prospects not staying in the Pac-12 footprint?
I think it's really about the NFL draft and playing for championships, or at least the opportunity to play for championships in the case of one Oklahoma. It's really that simple. And when you do the math on this, it makes a lot of sense. 5-star players want to play with other 5-star players, but more than that, they want to be developed into first-round draft picks. And Lincoln Riley's track record, as you very well know, is pretty damn good at the quarterback position.
So, I agree with you. And RJ, great to have you on the show with us and appreciate it. I made the argument earlier in the show with Jeff that I actually think it has less to do with the draft picks. I think or to get drafted, because I think the league has had a lot of success putting guys into the NFL. I think it's more about winning and getting more exposure. So that's why I feel like an expanded playoff, if it does go to 12 teams or when it goes to 12 teams, actually benefits the league. I think that becomes a little bit of a neutralizer for top-end talent deciding and opting to leave the Pac-12 footprint. How much do you buy that?
Not a whole hell of a lot, because at the end of the day, the kids are still making money that's ancillary, right? When name, image, and likeness. And when you talk about exposure, you'll get exposed by winning, right? And if you are winning at the level that Oregon has won at the last couple of years, you get some exposure there, right? You can get a Kayvon Thibodeau, you can get a Noah Sewell, you can get a Justin Flo, you can get a Malachi Nelson. I don't buy that. I want this playoff expanded because I believe that every one of the 11,000 FBS players should have a right to play in the college football playoff if they are that good, which is why I would love to see it go to 16 and not 12, meaning everybody that wins their conference championship gets in. And then you can have your 6 at-large burst where we could talk about the Notre Dames of the world who still don't want to join a conference. I really think it's about what you can do at the next level until we start paying a competitive salary in college football, but that's another train that I'm riding.
How does name, image, and likeness change recruiting? We've seen now, we just talked about Nelson leaving. We saw JTT leave to Ohio State. That felt like a foregone conclusion anyways. But how will name, image, and likeness help out the West Coast with keeping some of these players in our footprint?
I think it's about getting one of those Pac-12 teams into the college football playoff to start and then having some success. Like, we don't talk about Alabama nearly as much as we should in the right way. You can stay there for 4 years and not play until that 4th year and end up a first-round draft pick because of their level of success and development. You can have that in the Pac-12. As a matter of fact, they did have that in the Pac-12 when it was the Pac-10. Pete Carroll was at USC. And then we could talk about you can win a Heisman Trophy at Oregon. You can play for a national championship at Oregon. I really wanted to see them do something with what they have, right? Because yes, you're going to lose right now because we can't change the past. We can't change the recent past. But what you can do is take what you got at Oregon, take what you got at SC, take what you got at Utah. I mean, there's some good teams in that league, as you very well know. But you have to play the kind of competitive football non-conference that gets our eyes on you, which means that Oregon going to the Shoe and getting the first win over Ohio State since 2017 at the Shoe by a non-conference team or of any kind, right? would be a very big deal. Same thing with Washington heading to Michigan and so forth and down the line. So I think you start in September, quite honestly, Jeff.
Yeah, I think what your point is well taken, but RJ, I think it means winning some of those games, because the reality is there's been marquee matchups in previous years that the Pac-12 has had against other P5 opponents. They haven't won those games, and that's what sort of sunk this narrative, and it's made it worse when the selection committee is going out there and doesn't have a Pac-12 team really in that conversation for a top 4 seed. So I'm with you, but I think one of those, whether it's Washington, and a Michigan, and I think more importantly, Oregon and Ohio State, I think that changes the complete trajectory of the narrative for this league, especially if that team goes and wins a Pac-12 championship. I mean, hell, a couple years ago, Oregon, losing to Auburn, it kind of felt like in some regard they were able to rebound because of how close that game was, that Oregon still ended up losing. But, Oregon sunk their own chances. They go on the road and they lose down in Tempe against ASU, and that's the reason why they weren't playing for a college football playoff spot, because there was a spot to be had. They smashed Utah in the championship game.
Utah could have had that spot too, just as well. All they had to do was beat Oregon.
100.
But I
exactly.
Look, Auburn is a fluke, and that's me saying that all the way in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? That was a fluke. And then Washington getting beat by Auburn is not a good look either, right? Or Auburn's going to go up to Penn State. We'll see what that happens over there. But let's not forget, I should say, UCLA and LSU would be another brilliant opportunity. Colorado, Texas A&M, another brilliant opportunity. You have chances, and as long as you can still give yourself chances, it's going to happen. I really got a hard time looking at that Oregon team in 2019 and saying that's their fault. I mean, Bo Nix comes up with the play of his life to win that game, and it sucks. But you also have opportunities here. Like, we all talk about USC last year and how they got started, but Alabama was on their schedule last year. Will we be talking about SC and Oregon? If not, if they had played that game, probably not, right? And then you keep looking at the Pac-12 North. Let's not forget the division champ didn't even get to play for the conference championship. So no disrespect to Jeff, but I'm not even sure that's the best team to come out of the North last year. It's just a lot of fluky situations, and those are going to go away, I think, in 2021.
Well,
by the way, don't bring that up to Jeff, because I did that on Friday's show. He gets really upset about that situation.
My whole thing is that people just assume that Oregon was going to lose to Washington. Like, that's the thing. Like, Oregon could have beat Washington and still won the conference.
Right.
Like, we act like that Oregon was going to lose that game automatically. It seems silly.
Well, it's true, and that's why we play. But I'm trying to throw you a bone there, Jeff. I really am.
Well, no, I think last year was a very odd year for many reasons, and this year, to your point, should be more normal. But you mentioned the non-conference slate, specifically September 11th. Oregon goes to Ohio State. We're going to start previewing those games, I would imagine, in some more in-depth as we get closer to the season. But you cover the entire landscape of college football. What is Ohio State this year? What does Oregon have to worry about in that game?
Ohio State is an F1 car, a Mercedes, that is looking for a rookie driver that can take them all the way to a championship. Like, if it's C.J. Stroud, who I think at this point it's going to be, whether it's him, Kyle McCord, Jack Miller, whoever that quarterback is going to have so much pressure on them to not drive this car off the road, because they're loaded at wideout, they're loaded at tailback. Like, remember this name, TreVeyon Henderson is going to give the defense fits, okay? It might not be Oregon's defense that he gives fits to, but he's going to give fits to defense, right? To defenses. But I think if you can get pressure on those quarterbacks in those third and long situations when you happen to find them, you're going to be good. But that's what they are to me. And if they, say, Lord forbid, beat Oregon by 3 touchdowns, they quickly become a college football playoff national champion favorite to me. That's who they are.
Yeah, I'm with you. Is this the year, though? Like, Jeff and I were talking about this earlier in the show, and I don't know if the Pac-12 has a playoff team this season.
Oh, yes, they do. Yeah, they do on roster. Yeah, they do. Like, no, Oregon is an Anthony Brown away from being a really great football team. It's on his shoulders. That's what I'm saying.
That's the problem.
Hey, get off of Anthony's back.
I look at the rest of that roster and go, yeah, they got guys. I question the quarterback situation. Hell, Ty Thompson, I kept hearing all about this kid. We had Matt Preem from 24/7 Sports who covers them, and he's like, man, I brought him up. I said, when's that transition happen this season? He goes, I don't even know if he's the number 2.
Anthony Brown's a good quarterback. Okay, he was a good quarterback at Boston College, and Tyler Shuck left for a reason, all right? I like Anthony Brown, and I think given what Joe Moorhead was able to do with Trace McSorley, yeah, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I also think the SC is loaded. That roster is amazing, guys. They got the number one player in 2021, as quiet as it's kept. He's going to play alongside Drake Jackson, who's going to get drafted in the first round. They're great on the back end. Chris Steele is a 5-star corner over there who's playing like one. They got Brew McCoy on the other side. Keaton Slovis is coming back. Arizona State has problems off the field, but not on the field. The roster's still the roster. Utah added a bunch. Like, I get giddy thinking about what these teams have on their 85 scholarship roster. So I think you have a team in there that, if iron sharpens iron, can put itself at the table, especially in a year in which this is as down as Alabama's going to be, so it might not be them. It's probably going to be Georgia. And if you think you can knock off a Big 12 or a Big 10 champ or an ACC champ, whether to Clemson, maybe not, then I think you got a shot here. And why am I the guy gassing up the Pac-12 on this show? Isn't this the Pac-12 radio show?
Because we've been hurt for so many years. Our excitement level is very muted until it actually happens. The other big game, and I think that you haven't mentioned, is Washington. They play Michigan the same week that Oregon plays Ohio State. There's a lot of optimism out west for Jimmy Lake's program. What does Michigan bring into the table in that Week 2 game?
I think that Michigan is going to figure out that perhaps they should start the freshman in J.J. McCarthy over a guy like Cade McNamara. I understand that there's been some buzz around what Cade McNamara is. They added Alan Bowman, who was transferred from Texas Tech. I think they got a good group of quarterbacks over there. I just want to know if Josh Gaddis can figure out which one can actually go lead that team. So I think if they figure out the quarterback, they got a shot there, because it looks like Dylan Morris is going to win his job again to start the season. Sam Hewitt's going to take the redshirt year to figure out who he is. But on the other side, they got one of my favorite players in college football, a safety named Dax Hill, who is from my hometown here in Tulsa, went to Booker T. Washington. And I say this with all seriousness. That is the best pure football player I have ever seen. Wears number 30, okay? If they use him like I want them to use him, he's going to return everything. He's going to punt. He's going to be what Jabril Peppers was for them years ago, right? I think that if that dude has anything to say about it, he's going to have a couple of interceptions in that game. So it's about, can you get pressure on the quarterback once again? And I think the better quarterback is going to win the football game for Michigan or Washington at the Big House.
RJ, I want to throw something your way. We brought this up earlier, and I want to be respectful of time, but I do want to make sure that we get it in, because Pac-12 Media Days is next week. And RJ, I don't know where you're based. Are you West Coast guy?
No, I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma, dog. I'm in the heartland.
Okay, okay, you definitely are. So and I'm sure you saw the news, but Media Day is going to be in Los Angeles, LA County, saying, hey, you got to wear masks indoors.
Yeah, I'm down there.
If you start watching coverage of Pac-12 Media Days, pick your network, ESPN, Fox, Pac-12 Network, whoever's, I know Pac-12 Network's going to take it. But if people are wearing masks indoors, what's the overall effect, do you think, to the conference? Are Jeff and I overstating it? Is it a subtle thing that kind of hurts the league from a perception standpoint?
No. Like, it has nothing to do with football at this point. It's still July. That's number one. Number two. Number three, they're being safe. Like, I'm one of the guys that was really cautious about all of this, and I was behind all the kids that wanted to opt out. I think that if you look like you want to be safe, and this is coming from a person who has been shot in the arm twice, I'm for it, man. And it's only one day, right? It's not the 2-day or 3-day event that some of these are. I think that it's overblown. I think as long as you're being safe and you're trying to play football, people are going to let you do whatever it is you want to do.
We'll see. I don't know. I think that we just worry about image that we saw last year, right? People across the Pac-12 conference for the way they handle things, and the Big Ten as well. It's not just us. What are you most looking forward to in Pac-12 Media Day? We have SEC Media Day on now. That's a 2-day event. You were just in Dallas for the Big 12 Media Days. ACC has it this week, but I know you'll be in LA. What are you looking forward to the most?
Who is audacious enough to bring their quarterbacks? Because that's an easy way to judge the strength of a conference. If you're bringing a bunch of quarterbacks, you expect to be really good. And who is walking around strutting a little bit? I'll give you this. We did Big 12 Media Days last week, and it was a lot of fun. I got to talk to Matt Campbell for 15 minutes. Matt Campbell was smiling the entire time. I had never seen Matt Campbell smile for any length of time prior to that because he knows he's got a squad. He knows he's got a team. He's cocking a walk over there. I want to see who was walking around with that energy in Los Angeles next week, and that'll tell me a lot about who I need to be paying attention to come September. If that's your guy, Mario Cristobal, we're in business. If that's Jimmy Lake, we're in business. If it's Clay Helton going, you thought I was dead, but here I am, we're in business. I'm looking forward to that.
The quarterback thing is pretty interesting because our conference this year, I mean, if you're thinking about who's bringing quarterbacks, right, it's USC, Arizona State, probably UCLA, but right? I mean, who else is bringing their quarterback?
I have to take a look at the list right quick, but I think off the top of my head, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to come. Keaton Slovis is going to be there. I believe Anthony Brown, they're talking about it. We'll see what happens. I'd be shocked if you don't bring Dylan Morris just to put on a brave face there. Otherwise, I'm going to really have questions over there. So perhaps half the league, which I'd say is pretty good. It's pretty doggone good. And I mean, we haven't even talked about the bottom, or I should say the bottom half of that conference, and they're still, I think, going to be pretty good. I mean, Oregon State is not the pushover that it once was. You know, Stanford's going to bounce back. Cal's going to be defensively sound. Like, there's a lot to look forward to, guys. Stop being pessimistic. It's July.
I know. Well, RJ, we appreciate you joining us. I'll see you next week out there. I'm sure we'll have nothing to talk about. Me and you never together. So looking forward to it, buddy. Take care, and we'll see you next week.
Jeff, thank you so much. Mike, good to talk to you.